Chapter 7, Part 9. This is a long one. The man Jack said, "I'm going to put out my hand, boy. Scarlet, my knife is still at your throat. Do not try to run when I let go of you. Boy, you will place the cup and the knife and the brooch in my hand." "The treasure of the Sleer," whispered this triple voice. "It always comes back. We guard it for the master." Bod bent down, took the objects from the altar stone, put them in Jack's open, gloved hand. Jack grinned. "Scarlet, I'm going to release you. When I take the knife away, I want you to lie face down on the ground, with your hands behind your head. Move or try anything, and I will kill you painfully. Do you understand?" She gulped. Her mouth was dry, but she took one shaky step forward. Her right arm, which had been twisted up to the small of her back, was now numb, and she felt only pins and needles in her shoulder. She lay down, her cheek resting on the packed earth. "We are dead," she thought, and it was not even tinged with emotion. It felt as if she were watching something happen to other people, a surreal drama that had turned into a game of murder in the dark. She heard the noise of Jack taking hold of Bod. Bod's voice said, "Let her go." The man Jack's voice, "If you do everything I say, I won't kill her. I won't even hurt her. I don't believe you. She can identify you." "No," the adult voice seemed certain. "She can't." Then it said, 10,000 years, and the knife is still sharp." The admiration in his voice was palpable. "Boy, go and kneel on that altar stone, hands behind your back. Now." "It has been so long," said the Sleer, but all Scarlet heard was a slithering noise, as if of enormous coils winding around the chamber. But the man Jack heard, "You want to know your name, boy, before I spill your blood on the stone?" Bod felt the cold knife at his neck, and in that moment Bod understood. Everything slowed. Everything came into focus. "I know my name," he said. "I'm Nobody Owens. That's who I am." And, kneeling on the cold altar stone, it all seemed very simple. "Sleer," he said to the chamber, "do you still want a master?" "The Sleer guards the treasure until the master returns." "Well," said Bod, "haven't you finally found the master you've been looking for?" He could sense the Sleer writhing and expanding, hear a noise like the scratching of 1,000 dead twigs, as if something huge and muscular were snaking its way around the inside of the chamber, and then for the first time Bod saw the Sleer. Afterwards, he was never able to describe what he had seen. Something huge, yes, something with the body of an enormous snake, but with the head of a... what? There were 3 of them, 3 heads, 3 necks. The faces were dead, as if someone had constructed dolls from parts of the corpses of humans and of animals. The faces were covered in purple patterns, tattooed in swirls of indigo, turning the dead faces into strange, expressive, monstrous things. The faces of the Sleer nuzzled the air about Jack tentatively, as if they wanted to stroke or caress him. "What's happening?" said Jack. "What is it? What does it do?" "It's called the Sleer. It guards this place. It needs a master to tell it what to do," said Bod. Jack hefted the flint knife in his hand. "Beautiful," he said to himself. Then, "Of course, it's been waiting for me. And yes, obviously, I am its new master." The Sleer encircled the interior of the chamber. "Master?" it said, like a dog who had waited patiently for too long. It said, "Master?" again, as if testing the word to see how it tasted, and it tasted good. So it said it one more time with a sigh of delight and of longing. "Master." Jack looked down at Bod. 13 years ago, I missed you, and now we are reunited. The end of one order, the beginning of another. Goodbye, boy." With one hand he lowered the knife to the boy's throat. The other hand held the goblet. Bod said, "Bod," said Bod. "Not boy. Bod." He raised his voice. "Sleer," he said, "what will you do with your new master?" The Sleer sighed. "We will protect him until the end of time. The Sleer will hold him in its coils forever and never let him endure the dangers of the world." "Then protect him," said Bod. "Now." "I am your master. You will obey me," said the man Jack. "The Sleer has waited so long," said the triple voice of the Sleer, triumphantly. "So long a time." It began to loop its huge, lazy coils around the man Jack. The man Jack dropped the goblet. Now he had a knife in each hand, a flint knife and a knife with a black bone handle, and he said, "Get back! Keep away from me! Don't get any closer!" He slashed out with a knife as the Sleer twined about him, and in a huge, crushing movement engulfed the man Jack in its coils. Bod ran over to Scarlet and helped her up. "I want to see," she said. "I want to see what's happening." She pulled out her LED light and turned it on. What Scarlet saw was not what Bod saw. She did not see the Sleer, and that was a mercy. She saw the man Jack, though. She saw the fear on his face, which made him look like Mr. Frost had once looked. In his terror, he was once more the nice man who had driven her home. He was floating in the air 5, then 10 feet above the ground, slashing wildly at the air with 2 knives, trying to stab something she could not see in a display that was obviously having no effect. Mr. Frost, the man Jack, whoever he was forced away from them, pulled back until he was spread-eagled, arms and legs wide and flailing against the side of the chamber wall. It seemed to Scarlet that Mr. Frost was being forced through the wall, pulled into the rock, was being swallowed up by it, but there was nothing visible but now there was nothing visible but a face. He was shouting wildly, desperately shouting at Bod to call the thing off, to save him, please, please. And then the man's face was pulled through the wall, and the voice was silenced. Bod walked back to the altar stone. He picked up the stone knife and the goblet and the brooch from the ground and replaced them where they belonged. He left the black metal knife where it fell. Scarlet said, "I thought you said the Sleer couldn't hurt people. I thought all it could do was frighten us." "Yes," said Bod, "but it wanted a master to protect. It told me so." Scarlet said, "You mean you knew? You knew that would happen?" "Yes, I hoped it would." He helped her up from the steps and out into the chaos of the Frobisher mausoleum. "I'll need to clean all this up," said Bod casually. Scarlet tried not to look at the things on the floor. They stepped out into the graveyard. Scarlet said dully once more, "You knew that would happen?" This time Bod said nothing. She looked at him as if unsure of what she was looking at. "So you knew that the Sleer would take him away. Was that why you hid me down there? Was it?" "What was I, then? Bait?" Bod said, "It wasn't like that." Then he said, "We're still alive, aren't we? And he won't trouble us any longer." Scarlet could feel the anger and the rage welling up inside her. The fear had gone, and now all she was left with was the need to lash out, to shout. She fought the urge. "And what about those other men? Did you kill them too?" "I didn't kill anyone." "Then where are they?" "One of them's at the bottom of a deep grave with a broken ankle. The other 3 are, well, they're a long way away." "You didn't kill them?" "Of course not," said Bod. "This is my home. Why would I want them hanging around here for the rest of time?" Then, "Look, it's okay. I dealt with them." Scarlet took a step away from him. She said, "You aren't a person. People don't behave like you. You're as bad as he was. You're a monster." Bod felt the blood drain from his face. After everything he had been through that night, after everything that had happened, this was somehow the hardest thing to take. No, he said, it wasn't like that. Scarlet began to back away from Bod. She took 1 step, 2 steps, and was about to flee, to turn and run madly, desperately away through the moonlit graveyard, when a tall man in black velvet put a hand on her arm and said, I'm afraid you do Bod an injustice, but you will undoubtedly be happier if you remember none of this. So let us walk together, you and I, and discuss what has happened to you over the last few days, and why it might be wise for you to remember, what it might be wise for you to remember, and what it might be better for you to forget. Bod said, Silas, you can't. You can't make her forget me. It will be safest that way, said Silas simply. For her, if not for all of us. Don't I get any say in this? Asked Scarlet. Silas said nothing. Bod took a step towards Scarlet and said, Look, it's over. I know it was hard, but we did it. You and me, we beat them. Her head was shaking gently, as if she was denying everything she saw, everything she was experiencing. She looked up at Silas and said only, I want to go home, please. Silas nodded. He walked with the girl down the path that would eventually lead them both out of the graveyard. Bod stared at Scarlet as she walked away, hoping that she would turn back and look, that she would smile or just look at him without fear in her eyes, but Scarlet did not turn. She simply walked away. Bod went back into the mausoleum. He had to do something, so he began to pick up the fallen coffins, to remove the debris and to replace the tangle of tumbled bones into the coffins. Disappointed to discover that none of the many Frobishers and Frobishers and Pettifers gathered around to watch seemed to be quite certain whose bones belonged in which container. It's not the end of the chapter, but it's where I have to stop. Wow. Okay, so the man Jack dealt with, but not quite the celebration that one would expect at the end of a story like this. Not quite the simple, job well done, mission accomplished situation. Very interesting. All right.